And I am super excited to welcome Dr. Galina Reitz, who is the faculty director for the College of Information Studies at the University of Maryland. She has really made a unique name for herself in terms of combining her love and passion for technology and aging together. And specifically, I think you did your thesis on, did you do your thesis on voice technology for older adults?
Sure did. Yep.
Back when we didn't even know what the term voice technology was. You're truly a pioneer in this area, and I'm delighted that we've got you today for what's always a popular discussion topic. But before we dive into voice technology and learn about this product that that Alexa, Amazon has released, let's get to know you a little bit better, Galina. Tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to this unique career path.
Sure. Thanks, Steve. It's always such a pleasure to be part of this community, and thank you so much for having me back. It's always a wonderful experience, and as Steve mentioned, please feel free to interact. That's the best part is connecting with one another. So I really, really appreciate that. A little bit about my background. I have always had a special place in my heart for older adults. I grew up in an intergenerational family, and so those stories, those interactions have always meant a lot to me. And I didn't know that that's where my career path would lead, but I am so lucky to be part of the aging services community and also have a foot in with technology development, and ultimately landed as an academic who did a lot of research, as Steve mentioned, on technologies. And my perspective has always been to really support the older person, whether it's aging in place or wherever they are, and really meeting them where they are in terms of their abilities. And I was really disappointed with a lot of what was on the market in terms of tech. It was infantilizing, degrading sometimes. And yes, it may have been sort of developed with positive, thinking in mind. It ended up not being useful. And so that led me to a path of trying to discover what really works for the older adult and their family and their care partners and their caregivers. And voice technology was sort of a natural intersection of positive aging and supporting the elder community because it's intuitive, it was new, and so it was really kind of up and coming. And so there was a lot of opportunity to kind of discover where it could go specifically for those we care for. And that sort of led me in, having a lot of conversations with families and older adults and figuring out what are their needs. And as you can imagine, I discovered a lot, and I'm always passionate about reviewing and looking at new technologies and really giving you a practical perspective, because there's a lot of widgets out there, right? And we want to make sure that it's worth it for those we care for or for ourselves. And now, as part of the University of Maryland faculty, I am involved in various projects and really passionate about supporting the community, specifically here in Montgomery County, where I'm stationed, and am actually starting a Aging and Technology Center in Rockville. We're calling it ITAP, Information Technology for the Aging Person. Would love to chat more offline if you're interested, but it's really about intergenerational connections, supporting caregivers through technology classes, supporting our older adults in the community. So I'm very passionate about that. And ultimately, as it's stated in my bio, because of my frustration with technology and what's out there, I am also a co-founder of a Fintech financial technology company that supports family decision-making with technology and really is very person-centered. And so that's a very exciting project as well. So a lot of good things going on, and I'm so excited to talk to you today about Alexa Together.
Yeah, this is great. And so, folks, if I'm dropping Galina's contact information into chat there, and so especially if you are in aging services and you're in Montgomery County and you're thinking about technology, definitely reach out to her and partner because University of Shady Grove is right there in your backyard, and this can be a win-win for university as well as for providers. So that's fantastic. Um, all right. Yeah, as a kind of a lead in, I think what opened my eyes to the value of voice technology was a story I heard from a friend of mine years ago who was his mom had macular degeneration. It was getting worse. The family wanted to get mom to move to an assisted living, and she flat out refused. We all know that profile. It's very common. But they were concerned for her safety. And so what my friend did was he went out and he bought the little Amazon hockey puck devices, put them in every single room of her house, gave her a little bit of training on how to use it. And she really, it improved her life immensely. He said one of the, she'd wake up and she'd have the New York Times read to her and things like that. But one of the best things he said was it always drove her crazy that she had to call the kids to go grocery shopping. And now she was able to say, she'd add everything to her grocery list. And then on Wednesdays, she would say, buy and deliver. And she was able to buy her groceries and have them delivered all with her Amazon device. And I was like, man, this is really a great device that can help all of us live a more purposeful life. And so I'm sold on this, but I'm really excited because I was unaware that Amazon had this new application. I don't even know how new it is. So if you want to share your screen and we can dive into this discussion, that would be great. And
Absolutely.
let's see. Somebody said I'm not seeing contact information for Dr. Reitz. I'll put it back in chat there. Okay. All right. So take it away, and I'm going to remind everybody at any point in time, if you've got a question, just type it in using Q&A. And Galina, if you want to take a few breaks, I can let you know if there's any relevant questions.
Absolutely. Sounds good. But remember, I am an academic, so I can talk forever. So I'll make sure that I take some breaks. And, thanks, Steve. I think that example was great. And I have many of those as well. And I really wanted to give you, like I said, an objective, practical overview of Alexa Together as somebody who really looks at technologies, but also somebody who tested it out with my own mom. Because, you kind of want to get a feel for the platform, and they're calling it a subscription service. And so to figure out whether it's really the right move. And I know that it works for some. I think these voice technologies in the home can be really great and very much positively impact somebody's life. But at the same time, it's also not for everybody. And I'm very firm on, if it's not the right tech, there's no need to try to convert somebody to use it, right? We have to sort of figure out what is the best solution. So today I will give you the honest opinion about Alexa Together, a full overview of the service. It's meant for caregivers and their loved ones. They are marketing it as a subscription service for those who are caring for an older person. Now, this is it's a subscription service that you could really care for anyone, but ultimately it's a sort of a continuation of their free service, which used to be called Care Hub, which I've talked about as well. And that was very new and exciting, especially coming from Amazon, right? Such a huge company. They're thinking about healthcare, they're thinking about caregiving and support. So it was very exciting to kind of see that move forward. And we are looking at Google and Meta, and sort of how they're also exploring accessibility and disability. So I think in the next 5 years, we're going to see a lot of really exciting services just like this, right? So these are really kind of the innovators. I think in the future, we're going to see a lot of improvement, a lot of new services that support caregivers and their loved ones. So what is Alexa Together? Essentially, it's a subscription service. So it is something that has a monthly fee. And I will show you a quick clip of how Amazon is marketing it. I didn't want to kind of talk too much about the service. I wanted to, utilize sort of their show versus tell, and kind of give you an idea of what sort of how they're targeting the specific population. But ultimately, they've added some unique features that I definitely want to highlight that I think can be very useful, especially for an older person who is a lot in their home. They want to stay in their home longer, and need sort of that support before they're ready to kind of move on to higher levels of care. So it's a subscription service, and it does involve using the Amazon Echo devices. If you're not familiar, Steve mentioned the hockey puck. Now it's a full range of devices, from a hockey puck all the way to an enormous touch screen that could be very interactive. Of course, that follows with cost. So it is meant to connect families with and caregivers with their loved one, whether they're close to them or far away. And the way that they're marketing is that you only need one Alexa Together subscription. However, you need 2 devices, right? In order to be able to connect to your loved one, you also need a device, especially if you want to video call, you need the video device. And as the caregiver or the person who is sort of providing support, you also need to have a smartphone with the Alexa app, because there's a lot of app management as you kind of establish this caregiving relationship. And I'll let you know my experience with my mom, who doesn't really need support, right? It was just sort of an experiment to see how she perceived it in sort of the real world. But I also have some examples of how people are thinking about this. So I'll talk about some of the new features. I've just given you a quick list of what Alexa has. So just the standalone hockey puck or video device versus Alexa Together. So there is urgent response. So now they've added, right, an emergency calling feature. And much like Steve mentioned, I also have examples of, an older person who locked themselves in the restroom and didn't have anybody to call. So they screamed to Alexa to call their neighbor. Now you can actually reach an emergency response, not 911, but an actual live human being who works for Amazon, and they will connect you to 911. So it's added a layer of peace of mind. And I think that's a great feature. So remote assist as well. That was the big gripe that we saw with a lot of these services, is that the caregiver cannot really provide a lot of support remotely. You have to be in the person's home handling the installation. Now they've made it a little bit easier to be able to remotely help your loved one. And, fall detection, which is something new. And I'll talk about what that looks like when it comes to the subscription service and how it can be included. So this is an extension of the Alexa, of the Amazon Care Hub. And they launched it for about a year. They saw that it did well. And, I mentioned this to somebody, and I said, this is definitely going to be a paid service sooner rather than later. And it's true. Ultimately, of course, they are charging for these services. And because it was a useful sort of interaction, they decided to make it a subscription service. And there's a few big changes that they've added from the free to now the paid subscription service. In the past, you could not have multiple individuals support an older adult. So if it was me and my siblings, only one person would be able to have that subscription relationship and be able to have some sort of oversight of the interactions of your loved one. Now that circle of support has extended. So with the subscription service, it could be me, my siblings, my dad, all supporting my mom and looking at her sort of daily schedule and how she's interacting with the device. So they expanded the circle, which can be helpful. Now, the other big change is that remote assist. The older person doesn't necessarily have to set up a device on their own. Of course, they have to plug it in, and you have to have information about their Wi-Fi, or they have to provide you their Wi-Fi information, but the whole setup process is just a little bit easier. Alexa call for help, which is what I mentioned, connecting you to emergency response, and then the fall detection is the big sort of new feature that they've launched. Let me show you just a little bit of how Amazon is advertising this.
Alexa, start my day.
Good morning.
This is Alexa Together, a remote caregiving service used with Echo devices that helps you care for your loved ones, even when you're apart. You've always been there to help. With Remote Assist, you can do even more, like using your phone to set a reminder on a loved one's Echo device.
This is a reminder. Take your pills.
Alexa, thank you.
Alexa, drop in on mom.
Hey, baby.
How those reminders working out?
That's between me and Alexa.
I see how it is.
Alexa Together also includes urgent response. Available 24/7, your loved one can access it just by asking Alexa.
Alexa, call for help.
No phones to find, no buttons to push.
Calling urgent response.
Hello, this is Johnny with Amazon Emergency Services.
Even if you're not there, Alexa Together allows multiple family members to receive notifications and stay informed about your loved one's well-being.
So I think this gives you a good overview of some of the features that they're really kind of honing down on, which is the emergency response, getting the notifications on the caregiver's mobile device. So the subscription is $19.99 or $200 annually. And like I said, you only need one subscription for the caregiving pair. And once you've subscribed to Alexa Together, you basically can connect to your loved one's Echo device and do a lot of remote management, which is really useful. And, you know, you get activity reports. You basically can sort of see a bird's eye view of their day. So if there's, let's say, smart lights connected to their Alexa device at home, as soon as they say, Alexa, turn on my lights, you as the caregiving partner will be receiving this notification and know that your loved one is up and they've turned the lights on. Now, of course, there's a lot of positives, but I also want to kind of take a look at sort of what are the downsides. And, you know, we have high expectations of technology, but at the end of the day, we also have to be practical on sort of its capabilities. And, you know, there's ultimately limits to this technology as well. So one of the big issues that I see is, you know, they say that remote assist is really helpful and it's making it easier to install. Truthfully, my mom, when we kind of experimented with Alexa together, she already had an Alexa device, obviously, right? As her daughter, I have installed Alexa devices in her home and she knows how to use it and interact with it. The reality is it can be difficult for somebody who's really far away, who doesn't know necessarily how Wi-Fi, what their password is, how to connect, how to, you know, kind of start up the device. I see that as a barrier. So even with the remote assist, I think we have to be conscious that not every older person, let's say living alone, will be able to kind of install this on their own. Some of the other things that are sort of, you know, not to be nitpicky, but they can be a little bit of an issue. You need 2 unique Amazon accounts, which is okay if it's, let's say, me and my mom who's in another household. But if it was myself who wanted to take care of my husband, for example, or a partner, and we're in the same household, it just makes it redundant to have to create an extra Amazon account for me and for my loved one that, let's say, I'm carrying within the home. Not a big deal, but just something to kind of think about. You also need the Amazon Echo devices, right? They're trying to kind of build you into their ecosystem, so you have to purchase the devices. The hockey pucks are great and inexpensive, but you get a lot more value from the screen devices, which is video calling, that drop-in feature where I could say, drop in on my mom's Echo and I can see the camera and see how she's doing if she's sort of around where the Echo is. So that's really helpful. And the step-by-step process is long, right? When you have to basically go from start to finish of sending the email to my mom, for her to accept it, for me to install the Alexa app on my phone. There's just certain things that we, you know, should be prepared for. it's not as easy and as seamless as advertised. So it is quite a process to kind of get onboarded and started. Before I jump into fall detection and give you an overview of fall detection, any sort of burning questions that I can answer?
Yeah, let's address a few that have come in. Let's see. There were some questions on the cost, and we've covered that one. $200 a year, or I believe 20 a month. And can you use these services on the Echo Dot? But it's on any device, any Amazon Alexa device, correct?
Exactly. It could be a Dot. It could be Show, whatever generation. Yes.
Okay. Well, this is Sarah is asking a question. Galina, do you work with the hearing and speech department at University of Maryland?
I don't actually. I'm part of the Tray Center, so more on the accessibility and disability side, but that
Okay.
would be a great partnership.
Great. So Sarah, I shared Galina's email. Make sure you reach out to her. That would be great. And let's see. Anne Marie asks, does every caregiver pay the subscription or just one account?
Just one subscription for the caregiving relationship.
Okay. So could that could be multiple family members?
Exactly.
Oh, that's really nice.
Yes.
And then let's see. Is there a limit? Is there a limit to the data? Can you be charged if you go over a certain amount?
No, because the Alexa app lives on your phone. So obviously that's sort of outside of the scope of the Amazon Echo. In terms of the devices, no. Obviously there's not a lot that's saved on the actual device other than, your interactions being sent up to the Amazon cloud. But no, data is not an issue. But I did want to mention that in terms of the caregivers, it's up to 10 family members that can oversee one older person.
Okay, great. And then okay, let's see. Did you mention that there's a free service? Because somebody said, can you please review what is available for free?
There was a free service. It's no longer available.
Okay.
And so it's the only option that we have now. Yep. That's a great
Okay.
question.
And let's see. I think that gets us through. Okay, let's see. Okay, of course. Once I say I think I got through these, this is somebody just joined late, and they say, "Does this replace something like Life Alert?" I would call this an alternative to a personal emergency response system, but there are certain features that a personal emergency response system might have that this doesn't have, and potentially vice versa. What are your thoughts on that, Galina?
Absolutely, exactly. I totally agree. I think it could work very well with something like a Life Alert, right? This is, for somebody who, let's say, spends a lot of time in their home and is kind of close to the Echo devices, and of course enjoys the interaction outside of just kind of the oversight. It's also nice because this sort of replaces kind of installing cameras and those obtrusive technologies. But the reality is, if somebody falls in their garden or outside, right, the Life Alert device is something that's really going to be helpful. So this, I would say, would be a nice add-on.
Okay, and I want to get back to. I know we've got some more questions. I'm gonna do Rebecca's question, and then we'll get back, and I promise I'll get through all the questions. But Rebecca asks, what Alexa features support caregiver providers in their caregiving services? Okay, yeah. So I'm not sure if you can answer that one.
So meaning more like a large scale. So would let's say a community, what type of?
Yeah, I think that's what Rebecca is saying. What Alexa features support caregiver providers and their caregiving services. Yeah. But I can see where a caregiver, like a home care agency, they could be the ones setting this up for their clients, potentially. Could you see that?
Yes, I think, when it comes to Amazon accounts and connecting credit card numbers, it can be a little bit tricky. This is a consumer subscription service, right? So I think definitely a possibility. Of course, if it's a trusted caregiver and somebody that you obviously are giving consent and access to kind of have oversight of your Alexa device, absolutely.
Well, and again, I want to get you back on track here, but what I could see if I was running a home care service, you might talk to the adult children and say, we could potentially help you create that caregiving system using Alexa together. And if you would like, you could add us to that caregiving team. Perhaps
Exactly.
something like that.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
And then as part of ITAP here at UMD, we are planning to put together a caregiver course on technologies and particularly how to utilize Alexa together. So if you're interested, definitely let me know.
Oh, that's great. Okay. I promise we'll get to the rest of the questions here, but let's get Galina back on track, and then feel free to take another break and I'll go through a few more.
Sounds great. I want to be conscious on time as well, because like I said, I could blab for a while, but there's a lot of, features that I wanted to cover. So quickly to talk about fall detection, I think all of us who are within the community are always very interested in, the Apple Watches of the world and the wearables, and kind of trying to figure out what is a good technology for whether it's fall prevention or to notify somebody after a fall. So the way that Alexa Together has bundled this is with these two main devices. So Viar Care is a fall detection sort of a platform. It works through a radar, so it has to be, within the home. Sometimes you may have to get a couple of these devices installed in the home, and if it detects a fall, it will automatically call the emergency response Amazon services and ultimately be connected to 911. So this is a good option. As you can see, the cost is quite high. So if you have to purchase one or two or three, it really gets up there. The other one is sort of like the Life Alert. So it's something that you wear that is also connected to Alexa Together subscription. And so if it detects a fall, it sends a message to your care circle, right? Those 10 individuals who are part of it, as well as to emergency response. So that's another option. And this kind of alleviates, installing cameras and a lot of the obtrusive oversight. So not really the best sort of technology, right? We have the Apple Watch, which is very good at detecting falls and can contact 911. So if I were to choose between these and let's say a wearable, I think the wearable would be more reliable. But just to kind of give you an idea that this does exist, they're thinking about it. And it's something that is part of the platform. And this is kind of just to give you a little bit of an overview of what to expect from the app as if you were interacting with the Alexa mobile application. Just to give you sort of a visual of the remote assist, you can set reminders for your loved one. I did a couple of silly reminders with my mom, which she didn't appreciate. But if it was a real caregiving relationship, obviously these can be really impactful if somebody needs to be reminded about something. And then, like I said, they're really pushing the urgent response just to kind of give peace of mind to the caregiver and to those who are part of the circle of support. And it's nice that they've added, like I said, additional members who can be part of that. And it's not just one. Now, very quickly, the good and the bad about remote assist, right? So if you think about those days where, you would give access to, let's say, your work computer to your employer and they can help you navigate your computer, it's sort of the same sense, right? Me as the caregiver, let's say, I could sort of plug into my mom's Echo, make some changes, especially if she doesn't feel comfortable doing so. So a lot of options, whether it's reminders or, I can change some of her settings, but there's also things that I can't really change. So one of the things, like I can't create routines for her, which is, for Alexa to play her news and then to play her music, that sort of thing. I can't set up her calendar. which is something that I think would be very useful to have. I can't link her Echo device to a Fire TV, right? So if we're trying to create this ecosystem, this is a barrier. And then just a little other features that I think would be really helpful to be able to remote assist somebody with that are not there yet. But the great thing is that Amazon is really good about always updating and adding new features. So I really see this as having a lot of potential, even though it's not exactly as we had all envisioned it, but it's still in beta, right? And we're still kind of trying to figure it out. So I think it's going to look really good in the next few years. Now, some additional features, just to kind of quickly give you an idea. So can you figure out who's interacting with Alexa? So let's say, I get a notification on my Alexa Together that my mom has been talking to her device or has been turning lights on or opening drawers. Now, do I know if it's her or if it's the cat or if it's another entity? No, you don't, right? So you are missing that piece where you don't have a visual, unless of course you drop in and the person is standing right there and is in front of the camera. So that is a barrier. And, if you want to test out urgent response, there's a good way to do that. So you can feel sort of that comfort that if your loved one says, Alexa, call for help, they have somebody, to turn to, and the urgent response is working properly. So just a couple of things to keep in mind. Now, to give you a realistic idea of the subscription service, right? People who have tested it out feel like, on this, in terms of cost, for the same cost, about $30 to $40, with a medical alert. People love the Alexa Together. They really enjoy the alerts. And of course, all the extra features that you get from the actual device, which is very kind of a nice add-on. So you get peace of mind, but you also get sort of the consumer tech, the fun, the music, the weather, all of that. And there's obviously specific cases that will not work for everyone. And I think that's something that we need to think about. It's not for everyone. For somebody who doesn't enjoy voice tech or interacting with a robot or a tube, this may not be the best solution, right? So if it doesn't work, it just doesn't. And some training and sort of acclimation is needed. Some people say the most challenging part of the process was setting up the actual Echo Show device in somebody's house, right? Technology breaks down. If the Wi-Fi shuts off, you have no access. Alexa Together does not work if the Wi-Fi is down. That means that you cannot connect to emergency response if the Wi-Fi is down, and we know that that happens. So that's one of kind of the negatives that I really see. And what is the solution? I don't know. Ultimately, we're just expecting, Amazon is expecting that everybody has a reliable internet connection, which is really not the case. So there are lots of good stuff, lots of bad stuff. This is just for you to have. I'll share my slides with everyone. But some of the things that kind of how the subscription service is rated from Verge and kind of their perspective. And I've already talked about a few of these, but the Wi-Fi is definitely a downside. So if you don't have internet, you basically cannot utilize the service. And just to give you my personal experience, because I did test it out with my mom, as I mentioned, who doesn't really need care. She just uses Alexa to set reminders. She's still working. She goes to work. So she's not at home a lot. So it's not like I could really kind of go through the caregiving relationship, but I'm getting her acclimated, because I think if I were to need some sort of software platform, I would definitely subscribe to this. I like it. I think there's a lot of positives, even though there's some, there's some things that need to be improved. I found the onboarding process kind of tedious. I had to send my mom an email from my Alexa app. She had to confirm it. Of course, she was busy, so she forgot. So kind of a lot of back and forth until you establish the caregiving relationship, which means that if your loved one doesn't check their email or is not sort of familiar with the Alexa app, that's a barrier. So kind of, creates this kind of back and forth. But once you got to get it set up, it's smooth sailing from there on. And you verify your loved one's address. So making sure that, the emergency address is collected in the Alexa app, which was a nice feature. And this is not my own personal experience, because my mom didn't feel comfortable calling emergency response as part of the our interactions with Echo, but this is a screenshot of what it would look like if she did, let's say, would say, Alexa, call for help. I would get a text message, which is nice. I wouldn't necessarily have to go dig into my Alexa app to try to figure, what's going on with my loved one who has asked for help. And so it kind of gives you a bit of more information of what's going on, so that way you can drop in or call your loved one. So those features are nice. Now, for me personally, a lot of the downside was the notifications. I think it's great if it's somebody who really you need to kind of make sure that they're doing okay throughout the day. But because my mom has a Ring doorbell, all of the Ring notifications would be sent to me as well. So I would constantly be notified if somebody is walking by her house, if somebody is knocking on her door. So for me, it was a bit much notification overload, but I think for somebody who's obviously interested in kind of having a lot of oversight, this would be helpful. I also had a lot of no activity detected. This is a great feature because if the older person has not interacted with the device, you will get a notification that there's no activity, which could be troublesome, or they're just not using their device. So for me and my mom, she just wasn't at home, so I wasn't worried. But this is a nice thing to kind of have to know that if there is sort of no interaction, you could probably call or text, make sure that they're okay. Some of the pain points, like I said, remote assist was helpful, but really not all the way. And the doorbell mania, it was just a little bit too much. And I think we have a good amount of time for questions, so I'd love to do the Q&A. Just kind of my final thoughts. I think it's a very compelling service, a lot of potential to get smarter and more valuable. I don't work for Amazon, so I have no buy-in to this. And a big thing that I always think about is privacy and security. Yes, it's an issue, just like with everything that we're utilizing. So it's just something that you have to be comfortable with. And I can talk about privacy and security all day long. So the good thing is this has no indication that you're older. This is not a jitterbug. It's not something like a life alert. It's really kind of cool and interesting. So it's a great way to interact with tech without feeling like it's, infantilizing. And the fall detection can be useful if it's somebody who's in their home, and spends a lot of time in their house. So I'll stop blabbing. I'd love to hear from you and your questions and
I love it. And we've got a pile of questions here and comments. So let's get at it and see how we can do. And just a reminder for anybody who needs to jump off, I'm going to record this. Also, Galina said she can, if you email me the PowerPoint deck, I'll put that on the recording, and I'll also add the entire chat transcript, so you don't need to necessarily take notes. So I'm going to go through the questions, and then I'll go through chat. But Rini says, can this be used internationally?
Yes.
Okay, great. And then Joan Green, who's an amazing tech ambassador for older adults, says, I know that quite a few people are reluctant to use Alexa due to privacy concerns. My understanding is there's an option so that the data isn't saved. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. You can clear your history, so you can clear the interactions. You can mute Alexa, right? So she doesn't have to pick up your voice when you're not interacting with her. At the end of the day, it's really, I think, a helpful thing to have. So for me, I would rather Amazon get smarter and the device get smarter by hearing my interactions, especially because they're relatively benign, right? If I was interacting with Alexa with something a little bit sensitive, then that would make sense. But this is how, AI will learn from us interacting with it. So I see that as a trade-off, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah, the AI is a big debate, but what I tell people, and I know, every device is gathering something to a certain extent, but when I look at how effective the advertising is that reaches me online, because it's looking at my behavior, the ads that are served up to me have been very helpful in the last couple of years, and they've made me aware of products that have improved my life that I might have not found otherwise. So, but it's a big debate, and everybody is unique, and so there's no right or wrong on this. Okay, and Lydia says, are there privacy and security concerns using Alexa? Hopefully this dialogue has helped you with that, Lydia. We've got somebody that says, what if an older adult doesn't have a mobile phone or doesn't have it on 24/7? Would a landline with a message machine work? Do landlines, is there any way for a landline to interact with a device like this?
No, so if they don't have a smart device, if they don't have any device at all, then they could just honestly just would not have access to the features. So they wouldn't be able to get into the Alexa app and make any changes. But if they don't need to do that, then that's okay. Their caregiving partner, or that sort of circle of trust, those individuals who have smartphones and smart devices, they can really kind of operate. So it really, all you need is the device in your home. And you could utilize a desktop. So if you have a personal computer, you can go on the Amazon website and you can kind of poke around with the features. But the whole idea is that this is kind of a standalone device, which is a good thing.
Great. Okay, let's see. I'm going to read another question, but I'm also going to click this button because I see Jennifer Milcevic has her hand raised. So if that's not by mistake, Jennifer, just turn on your mic. Jessica, who is probably with a provider, says, is there a way our company could be billed instead of the person that we support? Thinking through this, I know that you could create, a company could create an Amazon account and bill this, but I doubt you could have multiple caregiving relationships on that account. It would be one account, one caregiver. What do you think, Galina?
I'm sorry, I was answering.
I know, no, it's crazy. So many questions here. She was asking, could a company be billed instead of the person we support? And I think you can create a company account, but they have not released a professional version of
Exactly.
this yet.
Yes, exactly. You would essentially just be sort of, it would be a consumer Amazon account. But
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. It could be paid for by an organization. But yeah, they don't have that sort of level where, a larger sort of for a larger scale. This is still very much just a consumer tech.
Yeah, in somebody in chat, I'm going to get to the chat questions here shortly. They brought up Amazon for hospitality, and while you were talking, I did some searching on that, and I couldn't find the Amazon for hospitality page. But apparently, at one point, Amazon created a product for hotels and hospitals, but I couldn't find the direct landing page. And their question was, perhaps the Amazon for hospitality could be something that senior living communities are using. Do you know anything about like apps or approaches that like a senior living community could use with Amazon?
I do. Actually, the first time I heard about this was at the Voice Summit, which is kind of our largest gathering for voice technologies. And of course, Amazon is there and Google and everybody who's interested in voice. There's another one actually I'm presenting at this October in the DC area. So if you just Google Voice Summit, if you're interested, but I'll be there and I'll definitely make sure to scope out sort of what's on the market. But I saw that it was specifically for healthcare and it was a lot of FAQ. So if you have a question about something, right, an Alexa skill was built to kind of answer general questions. But it's a lot of proprietary software. So it's not things that you and I could kind of go search out and purchase. It really is sort of a direct business to business situation. But yes, there is some voice support for healthcare and hospitality out there. Okay,
great. And Debbie Drennan, she dropped a Alexa for hospitality in the chat there for anybody that's interested in that. Let's see. Chase says, can it or would it be covered by Medicare or Medicaid in possible or near future? And I think this product specifically would have to fall under sort of like a technology umbrella, which would be wonderful because it could embrace other forms of technology as well. Any word on the street about Medicare and Medicaid and tech?
Oh, you know how it is, right? It's I mean, if you remember trying to get Medicare reimbursement for the little iPod, right, for music therapy, it's always, I feel like, a hurdle with technology. And so I'm hoping that researchers like myself, where we're making the case, right, that it is really helpful and useful and has an impact, will kind of move that forward, but nothing on the street about it. And because they just launched, this was in December, so we haven't had that much time to really kind of get data and acclimate. So we'll see, hopefully.
You know, I have to say there's, considering it's Amazon, it's this large company and they've launched this product. They're what I love is I love the branding and the name and the way that it's executed. I mean, like you said, there's nothing about this that speaks to sort of like infantilizing elders. The branding and everything seems to be very well thought out.
Yeah, absolutely. The language is very person-centered. It's all about sort of, caring and support and, not oversight and just kind of getting alerts. So that is definitely a side that I appreciate also as a
All right.
human-centered.
Okay, Joan Green says, and I had the same question, Joan, is can you customize the type of notifications that it sends? So, when you were talking about the doorbell mania, my thought was, hey, does it have a menu where you can turn off the doorbell and only, show notifications for a certain thing?
Yes, and you can do it sort of, I could have done it on my own device where, I could have muted some of those notifications. But yes, as with remote assist, I can go in there and essentially, be more kind of mindful of what I want to get notified about. And the good thing is that because there's, let's say, 10 of us who are supporting one older person, we can each kind of have a different notification selection.
Sounds great. Okay, so this is my last question on Q&A, then I'm going to go into chat and I'm going to run through those. Jennifer says, when you drop in on your older adult family member, does it automatically turn on the person's camera? I just feel like that's a little invasive to the older adult.
Absolutely. That's a great question. And so that has to be decided between the caregiver and their care partner. And so if they say, yes, you can drop in on me, then you can, as with remote assist, ultimately kind of open up that feature. But if they say no, and of course they kind of manage their own Alexa app, then they have a lot more, ability to kind of say yes or no to these features. So if both of you have agreed, then I totally agree, it can be very invasive. But if both of you are okay with it, then it's an option. So that's kind of the nice part. You can really customize it.
Okay, great. Okay. Let's see. Now, one thing I was going to say, Galina, I love having you on here because a lot of times the technology that we're featuring, it's the developer who is talking about it. And I don't think I could find somebody from Amazon to talk about this, even if I tried. But I like how objectively you presented this technology, the good and the bad. Whereas if you're working for Amazon, we'd probably only hear the good. So thank you for that. And Bonnie McClellan in comments chat, she says, are you aware of GrandPad, another subscription system for aging in place, and how do they compare? We've had folks from GrandPad on, but I'm curious, have you done a review of GrandPad and that device?
Yes, and I'm personally not a huge fan because to me, I feel like, sure, a lot of the kind of features that maybe are not needed are eliminated, but I'm all about empowerment, right? And keeping someone independent. And it's okay if they kind of, I'm okay with breaking tech, right? So give them a regular iPad and have them poke around. And of course, it really depends, right, on their level of cognitive impairment. And if they only need a couple of features, I think the GrandPad can be an okay device. I am just the type of person that I try to sort of figure out consumer tech, and it's, sometimes less expensive. and so there's positives and negatives to
And-
just
and-
regular consumer tech and GrandPad.
And actually, Elizabeth says, I had the GrandPad for my mother, and it's more expensive and much less user-friendly, very basic. I think one thing that voice tech in my mind is that a lot of us take for granted how difficult it is to do things. Like, we're used to using a phone or an iPad or what have you. But at the end of the day, for me to find the weather on my phone is not an easy process. And it might be intuitive to me because I use my phone a lot, but to say, hey, Alexa, what's the weather out is pretty darn easy. You know, voice tech is about the easiest thing the way to access information. Now, that being said, something that I haven't seen, and I'm still scrolling through chat, somebody that has a weak voice or a tremor or something of that nature, there are definitely challenges with voice tech, correct, Galina?
Yes, absolutely. And accents as well. My parents both have very deep accents. And the reason why I sort of push the boundaries of safety and security, and I encourage them to interact with the devices, because Alexa is learning as they're speaking more and more, right? It's all about machine learning. So it's a good thing to have this diverse group of people interact with the device, because it just makes it smarter and better. And yes, absolutely. You may need, in my home, I have a bunch of voice devices, so it doesn't really matter where I am. The device will hear me about turning off and on the lights and opening the garage door. But if you have one, then you might have to yell from upstairs. So definitely something to consider for sure.
Okay, great. And I definitely stick a pin in that. Somebody asked a question about the Google device, so I want your thoughts on that. But Mimi says, is there a safety concern for somebody hacking the device? There are companies that do the same thing with the Amazon devices, but advertise it as being encrypted. Is this also encrypted and safe? And is the hacking ability higher with this service? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a really great point. I wouldn't say, at the end of the day, Amazon asks you to sign like 14 waivers before you subscribe to Alexa Together. So you're basically signing off all of your personal data. But at the end of the day, you do this with everything. We just don't really think about it, right? So our data is always collected. In terms of hacking the device, anybody who has the knowledge and ability could drive by your house and hack your Wi-Fi, right? And get into things that you have not encrypted or secured. So is it more susceptible to hacking? I don't think so, particularly because you have sort of the Amazon safeguards. But no, I wouldn't necessarily not choose this feature, because I would think I would get hacked. But that's,
And John Dean, I see he just added on here. John Dean is a provider that does a lot of work with Parkinson's, and he said Project Euphoria through Google is building speech models for those with neurological issues. So I'm going to drop that into chat there real quick. Oh shoot! And when I did that, I lost my place here. Okay, somebody, okay. Amy says, will you be doing something like this with the Quero Arm wireless blood pressure monitor? What I would say to everybody is that if you've got some tech that you're interested in, let me know, and I'll reach out to the provider, and we can do one of these sessions with the provider. I love doing those. I really love it when Galina does these reviews. And so Galina, you've always got an open invitation. If you're reviewing some technology, and let me know, because I love this exchange with you, and this is wonderful here. Let's see. Will Amazon consider increasing the number of phone numbers allowed in a profile? My mom is blind and uses Alexa to call people, but there's 10 contact numbers are not enough. I didn't know there was a limit on the contact numbers.
So there's a limit on who has sort of higher level access to this subscription service, but in the actual, let's say, the older person using the device, no, they can add as many contacts as they want. This is just for Alexa Together. Only the special kind of caregiving relationship can be up to 10, but you
Okay.
can call anybody at any point.
Okay, so like a family, you could have 10 people, a family, you could have paid caregivers, unpaid, anybody is in there, but then you could have hundreds of phone numbers and they're all, call my son, call my daughter. Okay.
Exactly. They just will not have any of those kind of alerts that you're getting about, how is this person, interacting with the device. So just the care circle is 10, but the communication is,
Okay,
totally.
great. Let's see. Suman, she says that she had a problem with the microphone on her Echo Show and she's returning it. I've had good luck returning anything with Amazon. So I would not give up on that. Just return it and you'll get a new one. But she also asks, would this technology work for a person with dementia? What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are, as someone who has worked with persons with dementia for my research and throughout my career, I would say yes to a certain extent. And I think it can be very, very helpful, especially with, certain activities of daily living. I think it can be very helpful. I think it's better than a wearable. So I've also tested wearable devices with those who have dementia, and I would argue that this is a better solution.
But as we know, dementia we're all unique individuals, and especially cognitive impairment we're all unique. And, play around with it, because if these voices, sort of seemingly coming from nowhere or something that triggers your loved one, then, you gotta look at some different alternatives there. Mary Sweeney says, I just bought Wise camera, WYZE cameras on Amazon, so I can monitor my mom during the day while I'm at work. It cost about $100 for 3 cameras, and they were very easy to install. I can watch her on my phone. I can also talk to her, and she can talk back. No subscription cost, although you pay a monthly cost for enhanced services. So far, I'm pretty impressed with it. Thanks for sharing that, Mary. And your thoughts. I don't know if you've looked at any devices like that.
Sure. I think cameras definitely are a good option. It also, of course, depends on your relationship with the person
It's
you're
the
caring
person,
for,
exactly.
right? It really is personal. I'm actually on the Google ecosystem in my home, and so I have Nest cameras in my home, which I find super helpful. And, there's so many cool things like smart garage door openers, and you can get a lock that's very safe on your door that you can unlock. Let's say your loved one gets locked out of their house and you're part of Alexa Together, you can unlock their front door and they can get back into their house. So I think there's a lot of these sort of extra devices that you can add on to create a really cool ecosystem. Like cameras can be great if the person is comfortable being watched, by you. And I think it's a great option. So for sure.
Great. Okay. Let's see. I looked at the clock. We're a little bit past the top of the hour. You okay hanging on till we get through some of these? And also I see Deborah Halsey has raised her hand. A lot of times that's by mistake, but Deborah, if you've got a question, feel free to jump in. And while I wait for you, Deborah, hang tight. Renata says, one thing that needs to be made clear, Alexa will not call a cell phone directly. For example, my car will call a regular number, but Alexa only calls via the internet app. So we'll only call folks that have the Alexa Together app.
No, it calls an actual cell phone, but yes, through voice over IP. So it's not, it has to be basically within the home, or you have to be close to an Alexa device to call a cell, but you can.
Okay.
I've done this in my house when I don't know where my phone is. I tell Alexa to call it so I can find it.
Okay, great. No, that's good. Okay, Deborah, I think your mic is open now.
Yeah, I just want to clarify because my mom now, when she goes to call somebody that's not attached to her profile, which is a limit of 10 people, she can't call them. So those 10 numbers are attached to a profile. So I created a bunch of profiles only to discover that my mother would have to change the profile in order to dial another person, to call another person. So I'm trying to figure this out, but if you have any insight into that, and that's a new change, the limit of numbers to profiles.
And is this Alexa, you have the Alexa Together product?
No, she has her own Alexa and I have an Alexa,
Okay.
right? Yeah, so it's on, she has all the numbers she would dial on her cell phone. But now it's saying you are limited to calling 10 people in your profile.
That's interesting. That definitely didn't used to be the case. If anybody who was part of your address book, which I know could have, you had to import the numbers and that was sort of like a difficult thing, but it was never limited to 10. I'll look into it. That's
And Deborah, feel free to shoot Galina an email and if you resolve this, I can add this to the page with the recording of this conversation.
That would be great.
Great question,
yeah.
Deborah. Thanks
Thank
for sharing.
That's great. I'm going to test it out. I'm going to try adding some more contacts to my Alexa app and see what happens past 10. Yeah,
Great.
maybe a recent change.
Okay, let's see. Joan says, I use Alexa all the time in my home and I find it very helpful for elders. We use the drop-in with my mother-in-law when she doesn't pick up her grandpad. We like having both options in case one method doesn't work. Good suggestion. Again, one of these things, I think with what I like about all of these comments that are coming in, there's nothing that is one size fits all for everybody. And that's very important because I think a lot of times we are seeking that. And a lot of times there's frustration because it's sort of like, I can't get this to do this. But one thing that I've seen in tech over the last few years is that these applications are becoming more and more customizable, like where you used to have to be more restricted. Now I find that on the apps that I subscribe to every month, they're making it more flexible and making it more customizable. Now, the downside of making things more customizable is it gets more confusing. I'll make an example, just hosting these Zoom webinars. I mean, I was trying to do a live streaming thing before this with Galina, and I was sort of like, nope, I'm not doing that today because there are too many options and too many things that could go wrong. Let's see. Don says, I tell people that it's important to mute your Alexa while you're doing your money laundering business. Great.
100% agreed. Yep.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, here's the one on Google. Does Google have something that's compatible? Google tends to understand those with voice issues better than Alexa. I've heard that too as well, Debbie. Your thoughts on the Google Home? Are they looking at anything like this?
That's a good question. I don't know about Google. Our university is meeting with Meta, so the Facebook group of, who's Instagram and everything else. So they're very interested in accessibility. So I think we're meeting them in September. I'm really looking forward to see sort of where they're poking around in the space. With Google, I think you could use a lot of sort of the same interactions and services. They just don't have something specifically for caregivers and care recipients. But I feel like after Alexa Together, everybody's going to get on that bandwagon.
Yeah. And let's see. Melissa says there are assistive technology programs through most states where equipment can be loaned and possibly funded. They also cover home modifications as well. And yeah, I mean, one thing is that, we were talking about Medicare and Medicaid for these products. I would sort of urge people to, if you know of somebody that might be of lower income or looking to finance, talk to your church group, talk to your local AARP chapter, talk to the local senior center. A lot of times there are organizations out there that are looking to fund, something like this to help older adults. Let's see. Okay. I know I'm just trying to glance to see if there's any burning questions here.
I think I
that
saw something in terms of the calling from Alexa to phone. I have to say that by no means should we rely on Alexa as the only communication device. I feel like, you still need, whether it's a landline or a cell phone. I mean, that's just sort of, you want to make sure that, that's a really reliable service. And like I said, if your Wi-Fi goes out, I mean, you're stuck. So I never rely on voice over by itself.
Okay, I think we got through most of these questions. Man, once again, Galina, this
fun.
is absolutely awesome, and you're amazing. But I also want to say, you in the audience today, the questions, the comments, the chat, I can't wait to get all this posted up there because it's going to be so helpful to so many people who couldn't attend today and are going to be catching this later. Galina, stay in touch. You always have an open door policy here, folks. I'll make sure to put Galina's contact on the link and reach out to her because she's got great things going on over in her program. And well, I can't wait till our next iteration of this discussion.
Me too. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, everyone. This was so fun.
You bet.